Glad to have you here. So tell our listeners something about yourself.
Sure. I come from a family that's been in Harlem for over 100 years, and they've been community activists. My great-granduncle was the first black elected Democratic district leader in Harlem, and he fought hard for jobs and for services, and under very difficult circumstances. And I, at this time, am working hard to continue that legacy. And so I've been here with my family. We bought a home in Harlem 20 years ago. My wife is a physician that works locally, and I have been working for the city for about 25 years. I currently teach. I'm an adjunct professor at John Jay College. I talk about criminal justice issues too.
Glad to have you here.
On the right track. I'm a big education advocate, and I'm working hard to get educational opportunities for young people. I am a founding board member of a STEM school in the Bronx that started a few years ago, and I have been working in education since the early 90s when I started teaching at a local university, teaching college level courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that background. So, first question. If elected to the District 9 Council seat, which two committees will you prefer to be a part of in the City Council?
Well, public safety, given my operational and managerial and executive experience in that area, and also education. I have a doctorate in education from Columbia. It's been a real passion of mine to expand and improve educational opportunities for young people in our community. And so those are two areas that I would love to join. But of course, landmarks is another area that I'm also very interested. I've been on the land use committee for 12 years on the local committee board. So I've been, interested in land use issues for this community, really sort of looking at what the planning is, what the process is going to be for Harlem citizens, residents going into the future, as well as what's happening right now. And affordable housing, of course, is one of the major issues, but also overdevelopment of our community, trying to hold on to the Harlem that people know and love and come from all over the world to visit. If that is replaced by major construction, then we will lose the Harlem that we know and love. We're going to lose the population of people that are here now. They're trying to hold on as best they can to stay in this community, which they've been in through good times and in bad. And so I'm going to work hard as a city council person to make sure that not only do the people that live here are able to stay here and don't get displaced, but also to make sure that there's opportunities for all to come to our community, to participate, to be part of it, to raise their families. That's something that they deserve, and something I'm going to fight to make sure that we have. Complicated issues, but important that we have leadership in the position that's going to fight for the people that are here now, fight for economic diversity, and fight for the folks that are currently staying here to be able to stay here.
Okay. So, you've been in the land use committee for 12 years. You've watched the gentrification process happening. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area as well. So I heard a rumor, and since you've been on the land use committee for 12 years, this was one for you. I heard a rumor recently that the only organization is waiting for the new council so they can go back and return with their plan to rezone Lenox Terrace. What is your position infill at zoning and an infill project at Lenox Terrace?
Well, I'm not aware of that particular rumor, but nothing would surprise me. I do have an understanding of how the Olmec Corporation has operated with regard to the Lenox Terrace development plans that they have for over the years. I was there, I guess in the early 2011-12 when they initially came to the board with their plans to build up what they had, and they ended up retracting that, and then years later they came back with another plan, and I bought that because number one, they showed a lack of consideration for the respect and dignity of the people that live there now. And by that I mean the various types of repairs and maintenance issues, the efforts to warehouse homes, apartments, the lack of clarity and transparency and accountability of the business really told me that they were not honest brokers coming to the board with their plans to build up and build out the current existing property. Also, there wasn't a real consideration for the architectural importance of the currently existing buildings, and the fact that they were not landmarked, given their importance to African American history, was disappointing to say the least. So, for a number of different reasons, it's just, I don't have a lot of good faith in what they've been doing.
Okay, bottom line, would you reject it?
Given their history, it would take a whole lot for me to be able to approve something that they do. I would first have to have the written approval from the Lenox Terrace, the association of the residents there. I'd have to make sure, I have to talk to the residents and make certain that their considerations and their needs are being met with whatever is done. They should be making those repairs now. They should be showing good faith effort that they are actually going to be, dealing with the current residents with the respect and dignity that they deserve before they start bringing in new ones, before they start building towers that are going to really cause some severe issues in terms of infrastructure for our neighborhoods.
Okay. So you don't have a firm position on that.
No. It's currently it's negative until proven positive. I'm going to be very, very skeptical of plans that they bring forth based on the past experiences I've had.
Yeah. I don't know that any residents of Lenox Terrace, except maybe 3, think it's
right. Exactly. That's my point. That is my point.
Okay, so that was just we're at 2 questions and we're like 11 minutes in. So let's get to some more housing.
Sure. Yeah.
So, do you support the concept of rent and eviction regulation as a matter of policy?
Yes.
Now, it's not necessarily a city council question, but it's broadly.
I'm sorry?
I said broadly. Do you support the concept of?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's necessary. It's necessary, and really is for some it's the only way they can afford to live in a city that is, consistently getting more expensive to live in, given the prices that are being driven up by issues such as gentrification. That's the only way you can prevent the removal of the folks that are here that are not independently wealthy. That in Harlem, we have a lot of folks that don't make a lot of money, and if they don't have protections in place, they're going to lose their homes. And that's something we cannot afford to have happen.
The Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 made many positive changes to city and state rent control and rent stabilization laws, as well as landlord-tenant law. But what the HTPA failed to do was re-regulate about 300,000 apartments in New York City and suburban counties that were deregulated in the 25 years that vacancy decontrol was in effect. Do you favor re-regulating those apartments?
Yes. Now, I'm presuming that the owners are opting out of the program. If that is the case, you're talking about city-owned. I mean, government-owned housing.
No. Rent regulation is not government-owned or city-owned. It's private-owned, like Lennox Terrace.
Yes.
It's right, but it's not subsidized or anything like that. But about 300,000 apartments have been deregulated in the past, 25 years, while vacancy control was the law. And so that's 300,000 affordable units that are just gone. And so the question is, do you, in a nutshell, just yes or no, do you favor the re-regulation?
Yes, and I know it'll be a hard fight against real estate interests that are looking to maximize a profit, but we need to have our community affordable for the folks that are here. And so that deregulation of affordability is going against the very efforts to preserve affordable housing in Harlem. So I apologize for misunderstanding the question.
Oh, that's okay. Do you support? There's a bill in the city council right now that is moving through, and it's Intro 1572, which would require a racial impact study in ULURP applications. Do you favor that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because we've suffered from historic systemic discrimination in all levels of housing in this city, and there have not been substantive efforts to fight against that. That's why we need this implemented. It's an acknowledgement of the impact of racial segregation over time, de jure and now de facto.
Okay. Do you support state legislation to prohibit evictions without good cause?
To prohibit? Yes, of course. Absolutely. That's a quick answer.
Okay, so what about commercial rent stabilization? There's a bill in the city council as well, Intro 1790, for commercial rent stabilization.
Yeah, and it's been around for a long time, and I believe part of the problem with the bill has been having the 10-year lease, what that might do, particularly for small commercial landlords, in terms of locking them in without the ability to update their pricing for their spaces to stay competitive. Now, that is something I think could be worked on, and the bill could be improved to the point where it would be usable and something that all the stakeholders would feel would be a reasonable way to preserve neighborhood integrity regarding the small mom and pop businesses that are very vulnerable to commercial rent increases. And, that certainly happened at Harlem. We lost a lot of, this pre-COVID, we lost a lot of mom and pop businesses because they were priced out. So they have no protections against that, and they need to have something that will allow them to be able to not get summarily priced out because the neighborhood becomes popular.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. So let's talk about NYCHA a little bit.
Yes, sure.
I have a couple questions on that. Please pay attention to the question and answer the specific question because I have another one coming.
Right.
There have been many proposals to address the chronic underfunding of public housing. Do you believe that leasing land around NYCHA development for part market and part affordable housing development is part of the solution?
My preference is 100% affordability on publicly owned land. That is my preference on that, as opposed to having market rate. And so we have to work on how to make that financially feasible. But if it's publicly owned land, NYCHA owned land, then it should be 100% affordable. There should be some input from the residents that live in those areas about, the size and scope of the housing and the funding that is, the funding that is developed as a result of these developments. If they are not, for instance, 100% affordable, all that money should go into the maintenance of the immediate NYCHA buildings that are there. And to the lease, I'm presuming it would be a 99-year lease, to preserve the fact that it will be owned by the city, will maintain that ownership. And so, there are some caveats.
Okay. Your sound is getting just a little bit fuzzy, so if you could just make sure you talk directly in.
Okay.
So the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, or RAD, or commonly known, well, not commonly known, but is known in New York City as PACT, Permanent Affordability Together. But it's actually the RAD program. It stems from the government program that was designed, I think, during the Obama administration. The RAD program provides for transfer of management from NYCHA to a private developer, plus funds for badly needed repairs and upgrades, and requirements that public housing tenants sign new leases under the project-based Section 8 program. Do you believe that RAD is a good thing, a bad thing, or a mix?
Yeah, I think that it is a tool in the toolbox. I don't believe it would necessarily be effective in all of the NYCHA houses that exist, but in some of them it may be a way to deal with the fiscal issues, to generate the funding necessary to maintain the building infrastructure. But I don't think that is necessarily going to be able to help some of the other locations where the significant problems of the buildings will render them useless within the next 5 or 6 years. So RAD is a possible solution, but I think there are other ways that we can really work to get NYCHA housing back up to the livable standards that it should be. That is something that is an abomination. The scandals that have occurred over the years regarding the lead paint and the mold and the other environmental hazards that people have to deal with as a result of simply living in public housing is not acceptable. I would fight hard as a city council person to make sure that is a severe priority in getting the habitability of those buildings to the point where they are not just livable but pleasant to live in.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Is your campaign accepting contributions from real estate organizations like REBNY or its various PACs, Front PAC, RSA, or...
I have not received any real estate contributions whatsoever. I doubt that I will. I'm a historic preservationist. I believe in not transforming our neighborhood into unrecognizable, huge steel and glass structures. I believe in trying to maintain the cultural and architectural context of our neighborhood as much as we can, or as long as we can. I also believe in having the people that are living here be able to continue to live here, to be able to afford to live here, and that should be the focus of city efforts, city governmental efforts. But I cut you off.
No. Interesting that what you said, and I was going to ask you something about this new massive rezoning project on 145th Street, but we can't do that because I'm running out of time. So I'm going to go to my next question. The city, in a nutshell, the city voucher program fails to help most unhoused families and individuals out of shelter and into housing because the amounts are far below what private landlords will accept. There's a bill in the council to increase that, Intro 146. Do you believe that should be done to increase the voucher to a more realistic number?
Yes, it should absolutely be done. And very quickly, there has been a lawsuit that's been introduced regarding Section 8 vouchers not being accepted by landlords.
Yes, I know.
People discriminate against. Yes. And that is another issue that has to be dealt with as well in a meaningful way.
That's Housing Rights Initiative. I know that group very well. Okay, rapid fire. Rapid fire, yes or no? The City of New York creating affordable housing has been to provide incentives to private profit-making developers to include a limited number of below-market apartments, which for the most part are not affordable to low and moderate-income households. Do you agree with the de Blasio administration's mandatory inclusionary housing program? Yes or no?
I would say, yes, I agree with making affordable housing, but no, I don't agree with 80-20, formula. It has to be reflective of the neighborhood need.
Okay. Yes or no? Do you support a prohibition on selling or leasing city-owned land to private profit-making developers?
Yes.
Do you support a requirement that the only housing allowed to be built on city-owned land be permanently affordable to low and moderate-income New Yorkers?
Yes.
A constant problem of enforcing laws against landlords who do not maintain their properties and or who harass their tenants through illegal construction or other means and or flout our rent and eviction laws never resolved despite promises by politicians to crack down on these bad actors. Do you support increased funding for the city's code enforcement programs?
Yes.
And that's all the time we have for this segment of our show. I want to thank Mr. Keith Taylor, Harlemite, community board member, for his participation and giving us his very candid answers. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, and I would just like to say, anyone interested in seeing more, it's tailormadeforharlem.com.
Okay, to say that again?
tailormadeforharlem.com. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.